last night's scrappy debate probably just confirmed most viewers' existing prejudices. On Channel 9 last night, I'm sure you watched it. If you don't like the opposition leader, last night he was weak on detail and unconvincing on his help to buy housing policy.
Places like WA in Victoria, that's not right.
You go back to work and you've got to sell your house.
That's not right, Scott.
It's not help to buy, it's forced to sell.
Okay, all right, okay. And if you don't like the Prime Minister, last night he too was both smug and a bit aggressive and had nothing much on offer in the way of a fourth-term agenda except for more of the same. At a time when our prosperity and safety have never been more precarious, last night was pretty unedifying, if I'm honest, on both sides.
The pandemic for a brief period of time.
No,
it was.
Not at all.
I did have a question for you.
This happened on the government's watch. Well, I'll tell you what we did.
Why did you cut defence spending?
You just asked the question, so do I get to answer it? With your tick-off.
You've been telling this lie for some time.
Your party with your tick-off. You allowed it to happen.
No, we didn't. The federal government had absolutely no authority.
Excuse me, I think we're getting more questions between the two of you than our panel.
Well, today's polls, with Labor's vote strengthening and Anthony Albanese gaining as preferred PM, they obviously reinforce Labor as the frontrunner. There are still lots of undecided voters out there in an election that we won or lost seat by seat. Everyone I talk to confirms that on the ground, in the marginals, things are very tight. Labor's challenge is to get voters to support them, even if the more they see of Anthony Albanese, the more they're worried he's not up to the job. And for the coalition, it's to convince voters that Scott Morrison is up to the job, even if they don't like him. By getting into bed with Labor over net zero, the coalition threw away its Conservative base, and now it's scrapping to get those supporters back on board. Given the reality of energy security in Europe, can you imagine how strong their position would be if they had held firm? After all, it's not like rolling over on net zero has held back the teal independence, is it? As well, the coalition's climate position, like Labor's, puts at risk energy supply in this country for households and industry, and in a cost of living election, puts electricity prices front and centre with little difference between the PM and his opponent. Indeed, in a sign of where Australia's headed, a British energy expert today warned of a looming 50% price hike in UK power bills because they've got renewable energy so wrong. Hence, they're supporting radically upping plans for both new nuclear power and new coal mines. As plenty of Liberal MPs have now said to me, we sold our soul at the Glasgow summit, and for what? An election with little in terms of policies can only mean one thing. It becomes a personality contest. And the less that separates the two major parties, the more nasty and unedifying the leaders' exchanges become.
That is an outrageous slip.
It's the truth.
You want
it's only 2 pages.
The Cabinet
it looks
has
a bit
to
like
decide
that. There's nothing on it.
The human rights record.
Thank you, Mr.
Albanese.
No, their human rights record.
We need to move on now. David Crowe, your question.
Mr. Albanese,
we have a question.
Your best mate went to China when he was the Defence Assistant Minister.
I'd call it unwatchable if I didn't have to watch it to do this job. Ever since the last election, when the first Teal Independent won the formerly safe Liberal seat of Warringah, the government has been tacking left in a bid to keep its well-heeled post-material seats where climate and identity concerns matter more than cost of living ones. If the government holds on against the odds, expect even more of this in the next parliament as the Teal challenge grows. If the government loses and Treasurer Josh Frydenberg holds his seat, as he should, given his talent, despite the incredibly slick and well-funded campaign against him, and he becomes the new Liberal leader, the coalition will become even more Labor light as it strives to hold on to its leader and Kooyong. If the Treasurer fails to hold back the Teal push, even if Peter Dutton were to become opposition leader, a party that's cultural centre of gravity remains in Vaucluse and places like Toorak, it would likely still swing further to the left to keep what's left of its inner city seats. Look what's happened to the Liberal Party in Victoria. Despite losing in 2014, they've never become a clear alternative to Labor because there are far too many progressive votes in the seats they want to win back. Instead of targeting the working class seats in outer metropolitan Melbourne, the seats where Daniel Andrews' lockdown hit hard, the Liberals are still trying to appeal to voters in the leafy east, where affluence gave them more options in lockdown, like working from the spare room or perhaps their holiday home. Whether it was the cancellation of the East-West Link or allowing people to change their gender on their birth certificate every single year, or now a backflip on a treaty with Victoria's Indigenous people, the Victorian Liberals have just limply gone along with Labor. It's this lack of real conviction from state Liberals that's now looking like it's infected the federal parliament. Scott Morrison won his miracle election thanks to the quiet Australians, but some will say he's pretty much ignored them ever since. But as I've said many times in politics, if you don't stand for anything, you end up standing for nothing. Rather than just focusing on tearing Anthony Albanese down, the Liberals have still got 2 weeks left to build the country up and be brave enough to take on the issues that Labor's left cannot. And chief among these, in the next 2 weeks, has to be what we teach our young people in our schools.